Hey everyone, welcome to Code Sprint A. So you may be signed up for this class as an undergraduate under the code 450, or you may be in this class as a graduate student under the code 550. Before we jump into this canvas and talking about this week and the material for this week, I actually want to take a step back and talk about the code sprints and the structure of the code sprints. And actually, it's going to be helpful to diagram some of this out. So the code sprints in IAM are 1-credit classes that take place over 5 weeks, and they are sequential. So code sprint A is the first 5 weeks, then B is the next 5 weeks, then C is the last 5 weeks of the semester. And they're intended to be advanced topics in programming to give you exposure to new paradigms, to new programming languages outside of the normal curriculum. This year, I'm structuring it a little bit different. You can take all of them independent. They're structured as independent classes, but together they build up the set of knowledge that you need to build web applications. So to talk about what code sprint A is versus B versus C, it would be helpful to have a little diagram for us to look at. So I'm going to draw something up here. So let's say we are talking about a web application where you've got your browser. So here's browser window, and it's on your desktop computer, and you go to some URL inside of this browser window. What happens when you type in your URL is that your browser knows how to talk to computers on the internet that are registered for that URL. So a request goes off to a piece of hardware somewhere that is called a server. Just draw a little box here to represent our server. That server has the code for whatever site you're trying to access. So if that's Facebook or Twitter or whatever site, there is a computer somewhere that has the code that sends that back to your browser so that your browser can render it. Say there's like an image and then some text that gets loaded when the response comes back from the server. So let's label this. This is the client, and this is the server. And when we are working in this class, we are on the client side of things, and we are doing what's called front-end programming. And when you're working on the server, that's usually referred to as back-end programming. So front-end programming has to do with writing this code that is loading in the browser. So that can be things like HTML and CSS, which are responsible for the content of the page and how the page looks. And that can also be JavaScript, which is responsible for the interactivity of that page. So sometimes that's really simple interactivity, like a modal window popping up. And sometimes that is more complex, like it is an interactive data visualization, or it's a video game that is inside of your browser. So front-end programming, there's a lot of topic that we could cover. We are going to be learning something called React, which we'll talk about a little bit when we flip back to the canvas. But front-end programming, that is the domain of Code Sprint A. Code Sprint B is actually not on here yet. So oftentimes when you're working on an application, there is a third piece of the puzzle here, which is database. So your server is good at doing any kind of sensitive logic or expensive computation that wouldn't make sense to run on your client. Because remember that front-end programming, like this could be running on a desktop computer, but this could also be running inside of Safari on someone's mobile phone where they don't have intensive resources. So stuff that often happens on a server is like validating that a user can log into the application, pulling up their data. But it could also be expensive computation, like if you want to run some computer vision or some algorithms to take 2D images and turn them into 3D models. Those types of things could be running on a server. The database comes in where, because applications have a lot of data to deal with, like if you imagine being Facebook and dealing with millions and millions of users, and someone likes a post or someone creates a new account, you need to store that information in such a way that it's really easy to retrieve later and really fast to retrieve, because users aren't going to wait a second for you to like look up their account information when they're trying to log in. It needs to happen instantaneously. So database is a specialized piece of software. I'm going to draw it as like a bunch of stacked drives. It's just a specialized piece of software that is really good at storing data and retrieving data. And the way this structure works in terms of web application is that our server will handle the logic, and then our database will handle all of the data storage and data retrieval. So if a client, someone on the front end, signs up for a new account, they type in their username and password here and hit sign up. It talks to the server, which handles some of the logic around logging in, which then registers that user's data into a database. So let's put database programming here. So database programming is actually going to be Code Sprint B, and backend programming is going to be Code Sprint C. So if you take all of the courses together, you will have this knowledge of the kind of traditional structure of a web application that you can take off and start building projects yourself, and you can take off into your career post-Columbia. So let's flip back to the browser and talk about a couple of things. So one thing to talk about would be why web? Why learn web programming? And so I have a couple of tabs here that I want to show you. So one of them, this is from GitHub. It is their kind of year in review, looking at the past half decade of programming languages, and like JavaScript, which is the language of web programming, of front-end web programming, and also some back-end web programming, is consistently one of the most popular languages in GitHub. So it is a very popular language. The skills that you'd be learning in this class can take you far in terms of employability. There are a lot of people out there, especially now in the current climate, looking for people with web development skills, so HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. There are also opportunities to take the knowledge that you're learning in this class and use it to build desktop applications. So Electron is a platform that allows you to use the languages that we're going to be learning, but use them to develop desktop applications. And actually, the code editor that we're going to be using in this class is one of these types of applications. It is built with JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. You can also take the web development skills that you're learning and use things like Cordova, which is a platform that allows you to package up your HTML, CSS, and JavaScript into a mobile application and then, publish it to the Android App Store or the iOS App Store. I will also throw it out there that there are multiple ways to do this. So there are some ways that allow you to take your code that you're writing in web programming languages and translate it into native code for those mobile devices, and React Native is one of those tools. And this transitions nicely into thinking about the main tool that we're going to try and use this in CodeSprint A, which is React. So this is an open source library that came from Facebook, that is maintained by Facebook, that is all about building user interfaces in a maintainable way in JavaScript. So this first week of class, we're not really going to dive into React. We have to learn the fundamental components, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, before we can start using React, which is just a JavaScript library that helps us structure our user interfaces. But that's the goal that we're heading towards. And to give you a sense of the types of applications that are out there that are built with React, Facebook, of course, since it's their library, Instagram, Netflix, New York Times, Khan Academy, Code Academy, and then since I had React Native pulled up here, which is also published by Facebook, there are mobile applications that are built with React Native, like obviously Facebook, since it is their baby, Walmart, Bloomberg, Instagram, SoundCloud. So the skills that you're learning are in high demand, and are also used by industry very commonly. Let's take a look at the canvas together. So at the top here, we have department resources, course format, tips, department resources, how to use Canvas and turn on your notifications. Go through all of those. And then we have getting started and resources that are specific to this class, to CodeSprint A. There's information on me, there's the syllabus, there's how to access Microsoft Teams, and there's a tutorial in there for how to actually use Teams. There's a required software page here that goes through all the software that you'll need. There's also a video in there that shows you how to set some of that up. And if you're not able to get all of that software installed on your machine, there is a cloud alternative where you'll be able to log in remotely to a lab computer that has everything set up already. There is a page on my office hours and how to book time with me. There is a page that is just about getting help in general in our department. Where are the resources for you? And then there's the scheduling poll, which some of you have filled that out for letting me know when you're available for optional class sessions. If you haven't filled that out, please take a minute as soon as you see this to fill that out. That will help me set up our regular time for the semester for these optional meetings. Then let's scroll down and take a look at week 1. So week 1, all the weeks are going to have this structure where there's an overview page. That's your landing page for the week. You start there, and then there'll be assignments and resources and links and materials below it. And this week, the real focus is on the core fundamental skills of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. These are the 3 main languages of front-end programming in the web. And before we can move on to React and starting to build more complex things, we have to cover these fundamentals. Because if we try and jump straight to React, we will be missing building blocks and things won't make sense in React world unless you actually know these 3 languages well. So let's take a look at week 1. So there's an introduction video. There is this video that you're watching here, and then there is a section for to-dos for this week. So everything's due midnight by Sunday, and specifically what you've got is going through that getting started and resources, making sure you got Teams, that you can access all the software and you can install it. There's the scheduling poll, fill that out. The HTML, CSS, and JavaScript crash course, where I walk you through one at a time those languages, adding them to a simple application, and you'll basically follow along and turn into me the final product that you build. There is a discussion for easy participation credit where you post a message to Teams, just like a hello message, and then there is the optional class meeting on Friday in Teams, and the link is here. So that class session, we'll talk more about the final project and the structure of this class. We'll have time for community building, getting to know each other, and we'll also have time to do Q&A. So if you have any questions about the material already from working on it this week, or you just have questions in general, I'll be there to answer them. So if you click this link, or you click on the link from here, it will take you to the Teams app where you will see this page, and actually, it will jump you directly into this meeting. You won't even see this page. So if you click that, that'll get you into the meeting. If you are coming to the Teams page to find the meeting directly, you can just come to class meetings and then click on First Code A meeting. And the one last thing I will mention is that this class is mixed undergraduate and graduate students, and this class is mixed in terms of programming background. Some of you are coming in with a programming background, some of you are coming in with a web programming background, and some of you are coming in without a programming background. So some of you will have a leg up in terms of the material, especially if you're coming in with a web programming background. And some of you, this will be a little bit more of a challenge to get into it. You're all going to come out of this class with the same outcomes of being able to have those same base skills of building front ends. The place where you'll get to have some differentiation and you'll get to dive deeper, if you are coming in with some programming background, is the final project. So in this class, the final project is going to be a self-directed project of your own design. It is going to be something in the front end realm where you are using the skills that we acquire in this class to build a small application, something that can be portfolio worthy. And so if you are coming in with a programming background, that'll be your opportunity to dive deeper and show off your skills in your portfolio by building a more complex final project in this class. So with that, I will wrap up. I will see some of you on Friday at 4 p.m. And you can always reach out to me via email or via Canvas or sign up for office hours.